So, Alyza, you have been extremely involved in the Jewish anti-Semitism space for a long time. I know I met you when I was a student at NYU and I didn't know where to turn. And I came to you with the Brandeis Center about how to file a case. And you walked me through it. And since then, your career has completely blossomed, taking you to new spaces of advocacy. So walk us through how you got involved in the Jewish space and what you've been doing since.
Thank you, Adela. It's a pleasure to be here. So I'm a litigator by profession. Over 20 years ago, I began working with my father, Nathan Lewin, practicing law together with him. Somebody knows him. I'm a fan too. and while litigation, we did general business litigation, white-collar criminal defense, well, that was the bread and butter of our work. What I found really spoke to me always were the Jewish cases. So for example, we brought the first case on behalf of victims of terror under the Anti-Terrorism Act, which opened up, this is back in 2000, which opened up a path for those victims of terror, Hamas terror in that case, and exposed the Hamas network in the United States that is still causing issues today. We also brought and handled together the Jerusalem passport case that involved the right of an American citizen born in Jerusalem to have Israel listed as their place of birth on their US passport. And then we handled many, many religious liberty cases trying to protect people who were being discriminated against because of their Sabbath observance, or people who wanted to wear a beard in the police force. My father had argued in the Supreme Court the right to wear a yarmulke in the military, or the right to put up the Chabad menorahs in the public square. So 8.5 years ago, I ended up then taking over and becoming president of a legal advocacy organization called the Louis D. Brandeis Center for Human Rights Under Law. And that's when I got to meet you, and I really got to help Jewish students on campus. I started speaking almost daily to students on campus who back then, way before October 7th, 2023, were already experiencing the anti-Semitism on campus. And I realized then that that anti-Semitism had nothing to do with their religious belief and religious practice. They weren't being targeted on that basis. They were being targeted on the basis of our peoplehood and our history and our heritage that roots us and that connects us to the land of Israel. And they were basically being told, wait a minute, if you're that kind of Jew that somehow feels connected to the Jews around the world and to Jews in Israel, if you actually believe that Israel is the ancestral homeland of the Jewish people, that you have a history and heritage in that land, and that Israel has a right to exist, you're a persona non grata. We don't want you. I found students who they wanted to advocate on behalf of issues they felt so passionately about: women's rights, LGBTQ rights, immigration, climate change. And they were basically being told, oh no, we don't let Zionists in our club. We won't even engage with the Zionists. So I realized and worked at the Brandeis Center in helping students like you push back against that horrible pressure that students were feeling to shed or hide this part of who they were. And after 8+ years at the Brandeis Center, I felt we have now trained a bunch of lawyers, including you, right, to handle these kinds of cases. I wanted to go bigger. I wanted to bring that message beyond the university campuses, beyond the spaces that I was able to reach there. So now at the Combat Antisemitism Movement, I'm president of US Affairs. It's an American organization that engages internationally with decision makers, community leaders, activists. So on any given day, I could be talking to, on the municipal level, city council members, mayors, state legislators, state attorneys general, governors, or leaders in the Christian community, African American community, or even the Native American community, and helping them understand that as we draft and enact and enforce, because I train law enforcement officers also, and enforce the laws in our country, we have to make sure that we are protecting Jews today from the harassment and discrimination that is targeting us on the basis of our shared ancestry and ethnicity, our peoplehood and our history rooted in the land of Israel, in addition to targeting us on the basis of our religious practice.
That's amazing. 100%. And I know, at least for me and for you, we've been talking about Title VI for so long. I came to you in 2019, which was before COVID, way before October 7th. And now a lot of people are just starting to hear about Title VI. But can you explain to us what Title VI actually is?
Sure. So Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 is a very powerful tool that we've used on university campuses, because what Title VI says is it applies to any entity that receives federal government funds. And it says that money comes with strings attached. If you're going to get money from the federal government, you have to make sure that all the opportunities you provide are provided in a non-discriminatory fashion. If there are individuals or groups that are being denied equal access to the opportunities you provide, and so with schools that includes the extracurricular activities as well as the educational opportunities, then you are at risk of losing that funding because you're not entitled to that funding if there's a group that's being denied equal access. But there's one catch, and that is that Title VI of the Civil Rights Act talks about protecting against discrimination on the basis of race, color, and national origin. It does not include religion as a protected category. So the question arose actually back after 9/11, when you had Muslims and Sikhs who were being mistaken for Muslim, who were experiencing horrible bullying and discrimination. The question arose as to whether religious groups are even covered by Title VI. And that's when back in 2004 already, and then in 2010, you had the Department of Education and the Department of Justice clarifying that yes, Title VI of the Civil Rights Act protects these members of faith-based communities like Jews, Sikhs, Muslims, when they're targeted on the basis of their actual or perceived shared ancestry or ethnicity rather than their religious practice. And the reason why that's so important for us sitting here today is that many people don't realize that if you deny that the Jews are a people and you try to erase our history and heritage rooted in the land of Israel, and you claim that we are defined only by faith, you're also seeking to erase the legal protections that we as Jews have under laws like Title VI.
Exactly. And I think that that's one thing I try to explain to a lot of people, right? That what we see, the discrimination we see on campuses, the discrimination that we're seeing on the streets of New York and Boston aren't based on faith, but they're based on that concept of identity. So how does identity play into the law, and why is it something that we should care about here?
So it's exactly as I just explained. Today, there is a need for lawmakers and judges and law enforcement officers to recognize and understand that there are those out there who are hostile to the very concept that the Jews are a people indigenous to Judea, right? They want to erase and deny that. And that threatens our civil rights. That threatens our civil liberties. So what we need, what is essential for us to win this legal battle, as well as to protect and ensure the safety and continuity of the Jewish people, is to make sure that our youth feel confident, feel strong in embracing and celebrating our Jewish history, our Jewish heritage, our Jewish peoplehood, and our ancestral connection to Israel. And there is nothing that instills in the younger generation that strength and that confidence and that knowledge and that pride than going to Israel. That's why I'm sitting here, that's why I'm talking to you, because I genuinely, deeply believe that if we are going to win this battle, if we are going to preserve and protect the civil rights of the Jewish people in America and around the world, we need a younger generation that is able to withstand the awful, awful pressure that they are being put under. The pressures on campus today are putting our young generation to an awful choice. They're basically saying to them, you want peers? You want friends? You want community? Then shed and disavow your people's history and heritage. Otherwise, we don't want you. And we desperately need to instill in our youth the pride and the confidence that you heard from the folks you just talked to now in the audience, to stand up and to push back forcefully with pride and confidence and joy and celebration when it comes to our Jewish peoplehood and our Jewish history and heritage rooted in the land of Israel.
%100. And I don't think it's surprising that a lot of the student activists that you see rise up, either me and the previous generation, say we're saying that considering I'm under 30, And the kids that we're seeing today, like Tessa Vexler, who are filing their cases, have all been on Birthright Israel trips because it really does work. You can't teach identity. Identity has to be experienced and discovered. And there's no better way to do that than Birthright Israel. One more round of applause for Alyza Lewin.